Hey guys, gwyned here doing a standard Pauper Deck-Tech. This time I am playing my Izzet Delver deck that I piloted to a top 4 finish in MPDC 15-1. The match I'm about to show you isn't actually from that particular tournament. This is one of the games I played while I was practicing. And anyway, I still think it does a good job of showcasing the deck, so I hope you enjoy it. I won the dice roll here, and I did elect to go ahead and go first. So let's take a look at my opener. Here would have been nice if I had been able to have a mountain with the start. Being down 2 mountains and having a Chandra's Outrage in hand is a little awkward. That's going to be in my hand for a while, but otherwise this is a perfectly acceptable starting hand, so I will not mulligan. My opponent does not mulligan either, and we're off. And my opponent here plays a island and then plays Ponder. Ponder is an interesting deck choice. I personally am not as fond of the card. Obviously not nearly as good in my opinion as Preordain. It does give you the option of filtering your draws a little bit, and then if the 3 cards are absolutely no good, you can go ahead and shuffle. But of course, shuffling, you have no guarantee that what you're shuffling into is any better. But I guess the point is it's not going to be any worse typically when you go ahead and choose to shuffle. So if it was an instant, it would really be powerful, and maybe that's the difference. I think, is Preordain an instant? I'm actually not sure now. But in any case, perfectly valid card, maybe just a personal preference on my behalf. So here my opponent chose not to shuffle, and I draw into a second mana leak. I go ahead and play out the second island here. And see, this is one of the strengths of this deck, is it very much works like a draw go deck. In this case, I can hold up the mana for mana leak, and if I don't have any use for it, I can instead go ahead and use Think Twice at the end of my opponent's turn. Pretty handy. And really, as I mentioned in the article, makes your counterspell so much better when you don't have to when you have another use for the mana should your opponent not do anything that's worth countering. So here my opponent plays a second Ponder, and again chooses not to shuffle. So here, since he doesn't do anything that's really worth casting Mana Leak on, I will go ahead and use Think Twice and draw into Forbidden Alchemy, which is great. I'll go ahead and play out the third island here, and I will go ahead and pass the turn. Once again, could Mana Leak, could recur Think Twice, could play Forbidden Alchemy. You have lots of options here. I think in the game I did end up going ahead and recurring Think Twice. I think at this stage in the game it would have actually been better to cast Forbidden Alchemy and see a few more options. When this comes up, generally speaking, I think playing Forbidden Alchemy is going to be better than Think Twice. Either way, you're only gaining 1 card, but with Forbidden Alchemy, obviously, you have the opportunity to get a lot more of the flashback cards into your graveyard and potentially getting more than 1 useful card for the cost. And, you can always squeeze in. Well, I guess either way, you can always squeeze them in. It's the same cost. But Forbidden Alchemy is probably a better play there. In any case, I draw into a second Think Twice, and then pass the turn and draw another red spell, which is very unfortunate since I still haven't found a mountain. Here I'm going to go ahead and cast Think Twice. And I do go ahead and find that red mana, which is great. And now I can just pass the turn back. Obviously, I won't be able to play Think Twice at the end of the turn since I only have 2 mana, but it does leave Mana Leak in hand. Unfortunately, because my opponent is playing a Doomed Traveler, I am not able to Mana Leak it. This has been a card that it turns out is much better than I thought it would be. When I first saw it, I was like, well, 1/1 for 1, really not that great. But the fact that it comes back after being destroyed and is a white flyer is really, really powerful. With Core Skyfisher and Squadron Hawk gone, the flying creatures aren't nearly as common, and really this is a very solid card. Particularly if you can get it out early, just a great beater, and one if I was playing white I would almost certainly include. In any case, obviously not going to counter that, and my opponent goes ahead and wisely assuming I have Mana Leak doesn't cast anything else, and obviously I have no other plays. So I will go ahead here and let's see, obviously going to drop the mountain. Let's see, have a couple options here. Could use Silent Departure, could use Incinerate, could cast Forbidden Alchemy. Here, I am guessing that I'm going to go ahead and I'm not sure what I'm doing here. Oh, go ahead and cast Forbidden Alchemy here and draw into the Chandra's Outrage. Here, I could see myself going ahead and taking either the Mountain or Chandra's Outrage. I really need a second Mountain in order to cast Outrage, and getting a second one without having access to the second red is probably too greedy here, so I think I unfortunately just have to take the Mountain, and that is indeed what I decided to do. So, sad to see that go, but that was, I think, clearly the right decision. Not worth incinerating it, even though it would save me a point of damage, simply because, you know, Chandra's Outrage is really going to be the better use of my mana, and potentially, well, it opens the mana up for Mana Leak here, but obviously I could wait till end of turn anyway. And see, my opponent goes ahead and casts the Perilous Mirror. Here, with 2 Mana Leaks in hand, given that my opponent has 5 mana, the usefulness of Mana Leak is basically at an end. So I think here it makes sense just to go ahead and cast the Mana Leak, and even though he's going to have to pay, at least it keeps him from developing his board anymore. This was kind of interesting. My opponent goes ahead and pays the mana, but then lets the Mana Leak counter the Perilous Mirror, which, when it happened, confused me quite a bit, and then uses the mana to cast Porcelain Legionnaire instead, which is fine. And so obviously that is a very clear target for Chandra's Outrage, which is exactly what I go ahead and do. And get my first strike in against my opponent. Opponent hits in with a Doom Traveler. And see if I have a Mana Leak target. Again, he just passes the turn back. Draw into Silent Departure. Silent Departure is fairly decent against Doom Traveler. It doesn't give him the Spirit Token back, but what's even better, what really should be done, is you can destroy the Doom Traveler and then bounce the Spirit Token, because obviously once it's bounced it disappears forever. I think here, though, I just Silent Departure it. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if that's actually a mistake or not, but it probably would have been better to just kill it and then bounce the Spirit Token instead. But this does leave you know, a higher amount of mana in my hand. Really, the optimal play there would have been to go ahead and incinerate the Doom Traveler, bounce the token, and then cast Brimstone Volley as well, because then I would have activated Morbid, and I would be able to do 5 damage to my opponent. Unfortunately, I did not see that play at the time. So instead, I just bounce it away, and then recur Think Twice, which, not a bad play, and now I've got Chandra's Outrage, which, assuming that I see it, will allow me to do something very similar on the next turn. My opponent also goes ahead and plays Think Twice, and goes ahead and recurs it immediately, drawing himself 2 cards. I go and counter the second one. Again, Mana Leak's bad at the end of its usefulness anyway, so might as well go ahead and use it here. Keeps him from drawing that second card. Alright, so on his turn, opponent goes ahead and recasts Doom Traveler and finds a Delver of Secrets and a Porcelain Legionnaire. So here, have several options. Again, the best play is going to be to Chandra's Outrage, probably the Porcelain Legionnaire, and then use Brimstone Volley to deal 5 damage to my opponent. So I start off with the Chandra's Outrage, and I cast it on the Delver. I think that's a mistake. Really should have targeted the Porcelain Legionnaire instead, but get that off the board, do 2 damage. And then again, I go ahead and use Silent Departure. I think that was a mistake. I really should have saved the Silent Departure to use on the Spirit Token and gotten rid of the Doom Traveler. Yeah, I just don't know if that was really the right play or not. In any case, that's what I did, so it is gone. And then again, even though I killed the Delver, I didn't use the Brimstone Volley. Totally missed that play, which is bad play on my part. Opponent finds his 3rd Ponder of the game, and once again chooses not to shuffle. Replays the Porcelain Legionnaire, and I take a ping from the Doom Traveler. Here I'm going to go ahead and cast Incinerate. Looks like I'm casting against my opponent. That's kind of a weird choice there. Don't really understand what the point of that was, but that's what I did. And draw into another Incinerate. Let's see if I finally see the play here. Nope, looks like I'm just... Oh, yeah, looks like I'm recurring Silent Departure. Once again, doing that on the Porcelain Legionnaire. Again, not the optimal play, but it is keeping me alive. So bounce that. He's going to go ahead and use Negate, which is fine. And I think here I go ahead and don't incinerate it because I finally realized what I should be doing is using incinerate against the creature and then activating the morbid ability on Brimstone Volley. But that requires obviously waiting until I have the mana to do both. And my opponent finds his 4th Ponder. And this time finally decides to shuffle. And finds a 2nd Porcelain Legionnaire to play. And I draw into Forbidden Alchemy. Alright, so this time I am going to go ahead and use Incinerate against his Porcelain Legionnaire. And then use Brimstone Volley to hit him for 5. And then finally that leaves me enough mana for Forbidden Alchemy. Again, should have waited until the end of his turn to cast it. No real reason to cast it. Oh, and I in fact realized that. Of course, now I've telegraphed it, which kind of defeats the purpose of keeping it open. I don't have a think twice, so it clearly was Forbidden Alchemy if he's thinking about what I could have in hand. And he hits me for 4, but has no other plays. And I will go ahead and cast Forbidden Alchemy here. Obviously, I want to see the Think Twice in the graveyard. That's fine. I think the keep here is the Chandra's Outrage, which is in fact what I kept. And find a Shimmering Grotto, which, while it may not seem like a great draw, it will now enable me to recast the Forbidden Alchemy, which is the whole reason it's in here. No reason to play any other black spells or have black mana up with the Shimmering Grotto allows me to use the flashback cost, so that's why it's included in the deck. Obviously going to play it out here, but the play first of all is going to be to go ahead and use Chandra's Outrage and get that other Legionnaire off the board, deal another 2 damage, and then go ahead and recur the Think Twice and pass the turn back. Take 1 from the Doom Traveler, but now all I need is 1 other burn spell, and I'm in good shape. And here I'm going to go ahead and use the flashback cost for Forbidden Alchemy, see if I can find another burn spell. I missed, but at least I find another Forbidden Alchemy. I'll go ahead and bin all the rest of those. Pass the turn. Opponent finds a Think Twice and casts it twice. Swings in with a Doom Traveler. Plays a Delver of Secrets and passes the turn back. And I find a Brimstone Volley 2 in the game. Assuming, of course, my opponent doesn't have any counterspells. Which it looks like in this case that he does not. So that was game 1. I made a couple of bad plays, but overall thought I played alright. Definitely showed the strength of the deck. So that was game 1. I'll be back in a minute for game 2.